I hadn't even touched my glass of lemonade before she opened her mouth. Vanessa's voice sliced through the family brunch like a blade wrapped in honey. If it were up to me, I'd put all of Martha's money into a high-yield account tomorrow. But I guess some people just like watching cash rot while roses bloom. The room laughed. Shallow, easy laughter. Some sipped mimosas to hide their smiles. My son David looked down at his plate, silent as always. I blinked hard, willing myself not to react. My fingers tightened around the fork. I kept my mouth closed like I had for the last 10 years. It wasn't the first time she took a jab. It wasn't even the worst. But this time, it landed. This time, she said it in front of everyone. She called me out, not by name, but with every word she made it clear. I was nothing more than a walking wallet in their eyes. Vanessa stood to refill her drink. She wore that smug little smirk that used to fool me, back when I believed she cared. She added, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Older people really should think about their legacy, not hoarding. I mean, what's the point of dying with a full bank account and zero impact?" I looked at my granddaughter sitting across the table. Her eyes were darting between us, confused, embarrassed. She knew what was happening, even at 11. I looked at David, my only child, my boy. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. In that moment, I knew. This wasn't just a bad joke. It wasn't just a brunch with family. It was a performance, a setup, a calculated attack to humiliate me, to wear me down, publicly. They wanted me to break, to get flustered, to overreact so they could say, "See, she's not in the right mind anymore. Maybe it's time we handled things." I saw it all laid out like a map. And still, I smiled. Tightly, controlled. My voice steady because I've played quiet for far too long. So I said, "Thank you, Vanessa. I'll consider your advice." I stood. I walked my plate to the kitchen. My hands didn't shake. But inside, something was breaking. Not my heart. Not yet. It was the last thread of illusion, the belief that I mattered to them for anything beyond my bank account. Back in my room, I sat down in the chair by the window. The roses were blooming, pink, fat, and beautiful. My husband used to love these mornings. He'd sip coffee and read the paper out loud. Sometimes he'd kiss the top of my head just because. He'd be disgusted if he saw this, if he heard the way they spoke to me. A knock at the door. It was Vanessa again, peeking her head in. "We're going to talk about moving you to Glenview soon. Okay, Mum? They have really good facilities and full-time care. David and I were thinking it's the best long-term plan for everyone." She didn't wait for an answer. She just shut the door behind her. That was it. The line had been crossed. The plan was in motion. They weren't just hinting anymore. They were pushing, hard. And if I didn't do something fast, they were going to shove me into some overpriced facility while they drained every penny I ever saved. But what they didn't know was this. I may be old, but I'm not done. They thought I was alone, powerless, vulnerable. They thought wrong. I had been quiet for too long, but that ends now, because I've got something they don't. I've got time, I've got truth, and I've got rage, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that burns slow until it explodes. And believe me, it will explode. I shut the door behind me and locked it. Not because I was scared, because I needed 5 minutes without anyone watching, without their eyes on me like I was a burden with a pulse. I stood there, silent, in the middle of my bedroom. Then I moved. I walked straight to the closet, pushed aside my winter coats, and pulled down the storage box labeled taxes. It was dusty, heavy, but I knew what I was looking for. I wasn't stupid. I'd seen how Vanessa hovered over David's shoulder every time he logged into my accounts. She thought I didn't notice the way she always asked me to sign things without reading. But I noticed. I remembered. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the box. Receipts, statements, letters. And then, there it was, a manila folder, my name on it, my handwriting. But inside, that wasn't my handwriting anymore. It was David's, and it was notarized. I started reading. The deeper I went, the colder my chest became. A legal agreement, signed 2 months ago. David had authorized Vanessa to take control of all shared family assets, including any accounts tied to my name. The wording was careful, but the meaning was plain. If I died or became legally incompetent, they got everything. And the kicker? David had already filed a petition for power of attorney. Behind my back, he was preparing to have me declared unfit, mentally unfit, as if I was some senile old woman who forgot her own name. My own son. I folded the paper back in place and sat there for a long time. I stared at the roses outside the window, but I didn't see them anymore. All I could see was David as a little boy, running to me when he scraped his knee. David crying when his father died, holding on to me like I was the last thing keeping him upright. That same boy had just put a legal knife to my back and handed it to his wife. They weren't just planning to take the money, they were planning to erase me, piece by piece. I wasn't going to let them. I stood up, walked to the dresser, opened the drawer where I kept my passport, birth certificate, and the phone number of my old friend Helen. She used to be an estate lawyer before she retired. She'd know what to do. I grabbed my purse, slipped the folder inside, and headed out the back door. Vanessa called out from the kitchen as I passed. "Are you heading somewhere, Mum? We could use your help with the groceries." I didn't answer. I was already in the car. And I was done. Playing mother. Helen lived 30 minutes away. I drove in silence, clutching the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. When I got there, she barely recognized me. "You've lost weight." "Martha. You all right?" I dropped the folder on her kitchen table and said, "Read it." She did. Her face darkened with every page. By the time she finished, she was already pulling out a yellow legal pad. "You're not going to fight this quietly, are you? No, you want war. No, I want fire. Good. Let's burn them properly then." We worked for 2 hours straight. Helen explained everything in plain English. What I could revoke, what I needed to freeze, what I needed to move before they tried to take control. I didn't cry once. I listened, took notes, signed where I needed to sign. By the end of the meeting, I had 2 things I didn't have that morning: legal protection and a plan. I drove home just before sunset. Vanessa was on the phone in the living room, laughing too loud. I walked in, smiled at her, and said, "I'll be hosting a family dinner this weekend. Everyone needs to be there. All of you. It's important." Her smile faltered just enough to tell me she wasn't in control anymore. She said, "Sure. Should I cook? No. I'll handle it. This one's mine." She tilted her head, eyeing me with suspicion. I stared back, calm, even, controlled. She had no idea what was coming. David came in from the garage, kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just signed my life away. I hugged him back, but tighter, colder. Inside my head, I replayed everything he'd ever said to me about family, about trust. Then I remembered the moment he stood by while his wife insulted me in front of everyone. That was the moment he chose her. He thought I'd fold, that I'd disappear quietly, be a good old woman and just fade away. But that's not how this ends. This ends with fire, and I was done playing nice. 3 days later, the house smelled like roasted chicken and betrayal. I set the table myself. Cloth napkins, silver cutlery. The china I'd inherited from my mother sat gleaming under the dining room lights. I wanted everything perfect, not for them, for me. This wasn't just a dinner, it was the prelude. David arrived first, carrying a bottle of red wine like he used to when he was still my son. Vanessa came in behind him, checking her phone as if the night bored her already. They brought the kids, dressed in matching sweaters, all smiles and cluelessness. I kissed their cheeks. Not their fault. Not yet. Other relatives trickled in. My sister, her husband, a few cousins. I had made sure everyone who ever had a voice in this family would be here. The seats filled, the air thickened, small talk, laughter. Vanessa joked too loudly. David poured wine and pretended his conscience was clean. Then, when the last dish was served and the second glasses were poured, I stood. No toast, no speech, just my voice. I'd like to share something with you all. The room quieted. I turned to Vanessa. You remember what you said at brunch? About legacy? She blinked, unsure where I was going. Well, I've been thinking a lot about that. Legacy, family, trust, and what it means when those things are broken. I reached into the cabinet behind me and pulled out a folder, the same one I had brought to Helen's kitchen. Vanessa's smile faded. This, I said, lifting the folder, is a copy of the document my son signed, the one that gives his wife control over every asset in my name. Gasps. Forks hit plates. My sister's mouth opened slightly. It's notarized. It was hidden in my house, and it was signed without my knowledge. David shifted in his seat. I paused, then turned to him. I found it, David, and I read it. Every word. Vanessa cut in. This isn't the time for this. Not in front of everyone. This is exactly the time, I said, raising my voice just enough. Because you made it public when you humiliated me in front of the family. You made it public when you decided I was just a purse with a beating heart. David stood, his voice tight. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's just a precaution. A plan for the future. You're overreacting. Am I? I walked to the side table, picked up a small black device, and pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the room. She was on the phone, laughing, saying my name, talking about how I'd be easier to handle once I was in Glenview, talking about the money, about making sure I wouldn't interfere. The recording ended. Silence. David's face turned pale. Vanessa shot up from her chair. You recorded me. You invaded my privacy. No, I protected myself, because no one else in this house was going to. I turned to my family, my voice sharper now. They were planning to declare me unfit, have me committed, take control of everything, and smile in my face while doing it. My sister stood. You can't be serious. I'm dead serious. I've already moved every dollar out of reach. I've revoked every access. The power of attorney. The joint accounts. All gone. Vanessa tried to speak, but I cut her off. And if any of you try to challenge it, you'll be facing more than just me. You'll be facing Helen, and her firm, and the law. I let that hang in the air. David finally found his voice. You didn't have to do it like this. No, but you made sure I had no other choice. I looked at him, looked through him. You chose her over me. You stood there when she mocked me. You signed that paper. You didn't even warn me. His eyes dropped. His shoulders sagged. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. I turned to Vanessa. Oh, I'm sure it wasn't. You probably thought I'd go quietly, that I'd cry in some nursing home while you spent every dime I earned. But I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not your victim. Her mouth trembled. She opened it to speak, then closed it. No one said a word. I lifted my glass. To family, what it means, and what it never should become. I drank. They didn't. Later, as guests shuffled out with wide eyes and hushed whispers, David lingered. He didn't say a word, just stood by the door. I walked past him without looking back. He had made his choice. Now it was my turn to live with mine. I woke up the next morning to silence, no footsteps outside my door, no Vanessa clinking plates in the kitchen, no David pacing in the hallway like he used to when he was restless or guilty. The house felt colder than usual, like something had shifted permanently. Good. I took my time getting dressed. Pressed navy slacks, a crisp white blouse, hair pulled back into a firm bun. No lipstick, no jewelry. I wasn't dressing to impress. I was dressing for war. Downstairs, the dining table was still half cleared from last night. Plates stacked, napkins crumpled, wine glasses stained. But no one had cleaned up. Not Vanessa, not David. I walked past the mess, straight out the front door. I had a meeting scheduled, not with a lawyer this time, with a banker. Helen had helped me make the legal moves, but now it was time to follow the money. At the bank, I met with Mr. Carter, a regional manager Helen trusted. He had the kind of voice that made you believe your money was safe, until it wasn't. I need everything moved into a trust, immediate access revoked for everyone but me. I want new accounts, new passwords, new structures. Quiet. No notifications, no leaks. He looked at the documents I handed over, the signatures, the authority letters. He nodded. You're covered. This will take a few hours, but once it's done, no one can touch anything without your written consent. Good. Make sure of it. When I walked out of the branch, I didn't feel relieved. I felt sharper, cleaner, like something poisonous had been cut out of me. But I wasn't done yet. Back home, I found David sitting at the kitchen table, alone. The kids were at school. Vanessa wasn't in sight. He looked up when I walked in, eyes red, fingers tapping nervously. We need to talk. I hung my purse on the chair across from him. I didn't sit. You mean you need to talk? Go ahead. He swallowed hard. I didn't know she recorded that call. I didn't know she said all that. I didn't know she... I stopped him with one look. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. You let it happen. You signed papers that gave her control over my life. You stood there while she tore me down in front of people who once called me family. His face twisted. It wasn't like that. I thought it was just for convenience. I never planned on sending you away. But she did. And you said nothing. He stood now too, hands clenched. You're making it sound like I betrayed you. I didn't betray you. Yes, you did. You betrayed me the moment you prioritized her ambition over my dignity, over your own mother. His eyes filled. He stepped forward, slower now. I was afraid, all right. She made it sound like you needed help, like you were slipping. I didn't know what to do. I thought we were preparing for the future. Not this. I shook my head. No. You were preparing to steal it. To take everything I built and hand it to someone who looks at me like I'm nothing but an obstacle. He sat back down, like the weight of it all finally landed. So what now? Now, I said, everything changes. He looked confused, scared. You no longer have access to my accounts. The house title has been adjusted. You and Vanessa have 90 days to find your own place. He looked up, panic starting to rise. You're kicking us out? No. I'm asking you to leave with enough time and enough money to land on your feet. But you're leaving. This house was my husband's gift to me. You don't get to own what you tried to steal." He opened his mouth, then closed it. No more excuses. Upstairs, I heard the bedroom door open. Vanessa came down, wearing gym clothes, hair slicked back like she hadn't slept. She stopped cold when she saw me standing there. I heard. "You're serious? Dead serious?" She scoffed. "You can't evict your own son. I'm not evicting him. I'm reclaiming what's mine." "There's a difference." David looked between us. Vanessa's mouth curled. "You think you're winning? You think this little stunt will fix anything?" I stepped closer. "You underestimated me. That was your mistake. I may have been quiet, but I was never blind." She folded her arms. "What about the kids? You'd put them out on the street. You'll figure it out. You're resourceful. You managed to plan a legal ambush behind my back. Surely you can manage a rental deposit." Her jaw clenched. She stepped forward. "You don't know what you're doing." But I did. I turned, walked out of the kitchen, and left them standing in the wreckage they created. In the days that followed, calls came from other relatives. Some were shocked. Some tried to stay neutral. Others apologized for laughing at Vanessa's remarks at brunch. They all had opinions. But none of them mattered. I had done what no one expected. I had drawn a line, not out of rage, out of survival. And once you draw a line, you don't go back. Not for anyone. Vanessa stormed down the stairs like thunder. Her heels struck the hardwood with the kind of rage that didn't ask permission. She didn't knock. She pushed open the door to my study and stood there, hands on her hips, eyes blazing. "You embarrassed us. You've made a fool of this entire family." I stayed seated behind my desk, a pile of documents spread neatly before me. "No, Vanessa, you did that all by yourself." She slammed her hand down on the edge of the desk. "You don't get to play the victim here. We tried to help you. We offered support, guidance, a future plan. You turned it into a circus." I stood slowly, calm, controlled, but fire rising in my throat. "Support? Is that what you call forging legal control over my estate? Was that your idea of kindness, declaring me mentally incompetent before I even had a chance to grow old?" She didn't flinch. Not anymore. The mask had dropped days ago. It was strategy. Something David and I discussed. "You've been unstable, forgetful. We thought we were doing what was best for everyone. You thought you were doing what was best for yourselves." Her mouth curled, cruel. "Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's talk real. You may have frozen accounts and shifted paperwork, but the narrative is still ours. If this goes public, people will see a bitter, aging woman punishing her own children out of spite, a broken widow with money and no one left to love her." I walked around the desk and stepped up to her, my face inches from hers. "Say that again." She blinked. "Just once. You heard me." I lowered my voice, but let the venom bleed through. "You think a press release will protect you. You think a story whispered into country club wine glasses will erase what you've done. Let me tell you what's coming next. You're not just losing a home. You're losing your standing, your leverage, your control, and soon your husband." She laughed once, short and sharp. "He's not going anywhere. He's already halfway gone. He just doesn't know where to run yet." Her lips pressed into a tight line. I kept going. "I've made calls, Vanessa. I've retained counsel, filed motions. There are protective clauses in the trust that freeze all pending access requests. I've also submitted evidence of coercion, manipulation, and attempted financial abuse." Her expression faltered. "You did what?" I leaned in closer. I burned the bridge. All of it. No way back. The silence between us stretched, tense and trembling. Then she lashed out. You'll die alone. You realize that. You're pushing away the only family you have left. I stepped back and gave a slow nod. Then so be it. She left without another word. The door slammed so hard, a picture frame fell off the wall. I didn't pick it up. Instead, I picked up the phone. Call was already scheduled. Helen answered on the first ring. I'm ready, I said. Let's initiate phase 2. Later that afternoon, I had the house locks changed. Vanessa returned after lunch and stood on the porch, stunned, trying every key in her purse. It's illegal to lock us out, she snapped through the doorbell camera. It's not. Not after formal notice and legal transfer of title. Not after everything has been documented. You had 90 days. You chose to accelerate the process. The security company came an hour later to install the cameras. I paid extra for real-time access on my phone. It wasn't just protection. It was proof. That night, David came home late. I was in the kitchen stirring soup. He walked in like a stranger, quiet, tired. We stood across from each other, no words for almost a full minute. She's falling apart, he said finally. She says you've declared war. I ladled the soup into a bowl, set it down in front of him. I didn't start a war, but I'll finish it. He didn't sit. You should have come to me first, given me a chance to explain. I did. At the dinner table. You chose to stand silent. He looked down, his hands clenched. You left me with nothing. I gave you time, and money, and space to walk away clean. You stayed. That was your choice. He finally looked up, eyes wet. What do you want from me? I want accountability. Not tears, not excuses. You let her manipulate you into seeing your own mother as a liability. You watched me get dismantled piece by piece and said nothing. Now I want silence. I want peace. He sat then, slowly, the weight of it all pressing down. I was scared. She kept saying you were slipping, that if we didn't act now, we'd lose everything. I nodded once, and now you've lost something much worse. He didn't touch the soup, just stared at it like it was a reminder of everything he'd broken. I didn't console him. I didn't tell him it would be okay, because it wouldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The eviction notice arrived for Vanessa the next morning. It was hand-delivered, no envelope, just a folded document with her full name at the top, signed and stamped by the county clerk. She found it taped to the front door. I watched her from the upstairs window, arms crossed, unmoved. She stood there, frozen for a moment. Then she crumpled the paper in one hand and kicked the porch railing hard enough to shake the planter. She came in through the side entrance, wild-eyed, shoulders stiff, like someone had just pulled the rug out from under her designer shoes. You really think this is going to break me? I stayed seated at the breakfast table. Calm, present. I didn't flinch. It's not meant to break you, Vanessa. It's meant to remove you. You have no idea who you're messing with, she hissed. I think I do. And I think you're finally realizing you messed with the wrong woman. She slammed her hands on the table. The salt shaker jumped. The coffee cup trembled, but didn't spill. You think this is revenge. You think this is power. But all you've done is make yourself look cruel. You'll lose everyone. You'll end up old and alone in that big, empty house. I let the silence stretch between us. I wanted her to hear it. That stillness, that absence of fear. That was her power draining. You should pack. The moving company arrives tomorrow, and the locks change again in 48 hours. Next time, there will be no warning. She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come fast enough. I stood. You played your game. You underestimated me. And you lost. Her voice cracked then, a low, broken tone slipping beneath her pride. David doesn't want this. David made his choice when he stayed silent. She reached for anything, claws dulled by panic. This will destroy him. No, this will free him. What you did was the real destruction. She turned and stormed out of the kitchen, shoes slapping hard against the tile. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The avalanche had already started, and I wasn't the one buried under it. 2 hours later, David came back from work early. He walked in through the garage and found me in the living room, reading by the window. He looked wrecked, no tie, collar undone, a man unraveling from the inside out. I saw the notice. I nodded once, didn't look up. You're serious. You're actually going through with it. I turned the page of my book, then closed it. She forged documents. She plotted to have me committed. She laughed about it on the phone. You stood by. This isn't personal, David. It's necessary. His mouth opened, but no words came. Then finally, I didn't know how far she went. I didn't think she'd do this. She did. And you let her. He dropped into the chair across from me, like the weight of it finally crushed him. I'm sorry. That's not enough. What do you want from me? He said again, but quieter this time. Almost defeated. I want you to feel what I felt when I realized my only child thought I was expendable. I want you to sit with that, not to punish you, but because it's the only way you'll understand. He nodded, slowly. He didn't try to argue anymore. Upstairs, I heard the sound of boxes being taped, drawers slamming, the noise of a life being forced into cardboard. Good. That night, I invited Helen over. We sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine and a laptop. I signed the last set of legal transfers, the house, the accounts, the irrevocable trust, everything bulletproof. I'm tired, I said finally, but it's the kind of tired that comes after a long war. Helen smiled at me, her eyes soft. You're not tired. You're reborn. I didn't smile back, but I didn't disagree. The next morning, the movers arrived. Vanessa refused to make eye contact. Her makeup was perfect, her tone cold, but her hands trembled every time she picked up something fragile. David supervised in silence. The kids stayed with friends that day, probably better that way. By noon, their things were gone. By 2, they were standing in the driveway. David looked back once. Vanessa didn't. I didn't come out to wave. I just watched through the window. And when they were gone, truly gone, I let myself breathe for the first time in weeks. I wasn't sad. I wasn't relieved. I was clear. The storm had passed, and I was still standing. Not because someone saved me, because I saved myself. The silence after their departure didn't last long. By the 3rd day, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered. No stamp, no return address. But I knew exactly where it came from. I opened it at the kitchen table. Legal letterhead. Cold phrasing. David was requesting a formal mediation. The document read like a polished threat dressed as a proposal. He claimed emotional distress, claimed the eviction was abrupt, claimed he'd been coerced into signing away access to what was rightfully his. They had found a new attorney. Of course they had. I placed the letter down and called Helen. She answered before the first ring finished. They're not going away, I said. Then neither are we, she replied. The next week moved fast. Court dates, filings, affidavits. Helen had anticipated the move. We weren't caught off guard. Every signature was clean, every dollar traceable, every document watertight. But they weren't coming after the money anymore. Not really. They were coming for public sympathy. It started with David's carefully worded posts online, sad photos of the kids packing boxes, a long caption about generational misunderstandings, about mothers holding on too tightly, about family being complicated. No mention of forged documents, no mention of power of attorney filed without consent. Just a soft, curated version of the truth. Then Vanessa took it further. She posted a story from the new rental. She looked devastated, makeup minimal, lighting gentle, eyes full of practiced sorrow. "We tried everything," she wrote. "But sometimes people refuse to be helped. And sometimes all you can do is protect your family and walk away." The comments poured in. Strangers offering prayers. Friends blaming me without knowing the facts. The pity party had gone digital. I didn't respond. But I wasn't going to stay quiet either. I made one phone call. A friend of my late husband, retired journalist, old school, sharp as ever. I invited him to coffee and gave him everything. The documents, the timeline, the forged signatures, the recorded calls. I let the facts speak louder than my anger ever could. He listened, took notes, asked questions. Then he said one thing. "You want exposure or justice? Both," I said. "Then let me write it right." The article dropped 2 days later, front page of a respected regional outlet. Headline blunt. Woman, 68, fights back against alleged family fraud and legal coercion. They used their real names, included the documents, quoted the notary, quoted me. I didn't pose for a photo. I didn't want to. But I told the story exactly as it happened, without theatrics, without spin, just truth. It spread faster than I expected. Other outlets picked it up. The comments shifted. Strangers started digging. Screenshots from Vanessa's posts were compared to the timeline in the article. The holes in their narrative widened. Sympathy turned to suspicion. By Friday, Vanessa had deleted her posts. David disabled comments on his page. They weren't prepared for the backlash, because they weren't used to being questioned. That weekend, they showed up at my door. I didn't open it right away. I watched from the hallway. David looked exhausted. Vanessa looked like she hadn't slept in days. When I finally opened the door, neither of them spoke. David started with a whisper. "We didn't think it would go this far." "But it did," I said. He nodded. "We just wanted things to be secure. We didn't mean for you to feel attacked. You didn't mean for me to find out, you mean." Vanessa stepped forward, voice shaking. "I'm sorry." I raised an eyebrow. "For what, exactly?" She looked away. "For assuming we could control something that never belonged to us. For trying to manage you like a problem instead of respecting you as a person." The words were right. The tone was wrong. It was too late for polished apologies. I stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes." They came in slowly, like people walking into their own funeral. We sat in the living room, the same room where Vanessa once bragged about her friend's beachfront renovation, while I served coffee like a maid. The same room where David laughed while she made passive digs about retirement homes. Now they sat across from me like school children caught stealing. David was the first to break. "We're pulling the complaint, withdrawing everything. It's done." I nodded. Helen already informed me. There was a pause. Vanessa swallowed hard. "I think we forgot you were a person. We treated you like a barrier, like a financial hurdle. And you're not." I didn't answer, because there was nothing to say yet. David looked up. "What now? Now you rebuild. You work. You parent. You live without expecting access to what you didn't earn. And us, he asked. You earn your way back into my life, day by day, not with words, with actions, and slowly. Vanessa nodded, eyes glassy. Thank you for not shutting the door. I almost did, but I didn't. And that's what made all the difference. They didn't come back the next week. No messages, no calls, not even a cold email from Vanessa's account. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe the humiliation cracked them open and left them in pieces. But I should have known better. Shame doesn't stick long to people who've rehearsed it. 10 days later, a certified letter showed up at my doorstep. Different lawyer this time. No mediation this round. Just an abrupt, threatening notification. Vanessa had filed a motion for defamation, targeting the article, the journalist, and me. It wasn't a real lawsuit. It was noise, a stunt to reclaim control. The article was bulletproof and she knew it. But it wasn't about winning. It was about bruising, dragging my name through another storm and hoping the public would grow tired of the drama. I didn't call Helen. I didn't need to. She called me. She's testing your stamina, Helen said, hoping you'll back down to save face. I'm not backing down, I told her. I didn't start this, but you're going to finish it. The next 48 hours moved like wildfire. Helen countered with a cease and desist, filed for court sanctions against Vanessa for frivolous litigation, sent a formal letter to the publication's legal team with full documentation showing malice, deception, and a history of coercion. That alone would have ended most people. But not Vanessa. She doubled down. Within days, she posted a new video. Not a teary apology, not a soft backpedal. A staged, professional-looking video titled Rewriting the Narrative. She wore ivory, clean makeup, soft music in the background, a carefully curated monologue about family, loss, and regret. But buried beneath the performance was a barbed message. She implied financial abuse. She hinted that I had been unstable, that everything she did was out of fear and love. It was cunning, slick, sharper than anything she'd done before. She knew what she was doing. That night, I watched the video 3 times. Each viewing stripped another layer of performance away. And then I made a decision. I called the same journalist, told him I wanted a follow-up. This time I'd speak on camera. We met in his studio 2 days later. No stylist, no makeup team, just me in a navy cardigan, silver earrings, and a clear head. I looked into the camera and told the truth. I spoke about the betrayal, the power of manipulation, what it's like to realize your son has signed away your autonomy, what it feels like to be reduced to an asset. I spoke plainly, without tears, without venom, just clarity. I ended the interview with one line: they taught me to be quiet. I taught myself to be unbreakable. The video aired the next evening. It went viral by sunrise. The reaction was immediate, brutal. The contrast between my calm presence and Vanessa's polished pity act was too stark. People picked it apart. Side-by-side comparisons. Breakdown videos. Online essays dissecting generational manipulation and elder abuse. Vanessa shut her accounts down within 24 hours. David called me the next day. I let it ring twice before picking up. He didn't start with excuses this time. You win. It's not about winning. He let out a breath. She's gone. Packed her things. Took the kids to her sister's. Said she needed space. Said I should think about what I allowed to happen. And what did you think, that I chose wrong? And I kept choosing wrong, even when it was obvious. There was silence. Then he said something he hadn't said in years. I'm sorry, Mum. Not just for what I did, for what I didn't stop. I closed my eyes. I know you are. He cleared his throat. I want to come by next week. Just me. No drama, no requests, just me. I paused, then nodded. Next week. He hung up. No begging, no promises. Just a man who finally stepped out from behind the wreckage. I leaned back in my chair. It wasn't over. Not yet. But for the first time since this started, I wasn't fighting to prove anything. I was fighting to heal. On my terms, my pace. And this time, no one was going to rewrite the ending but me. David arrived at 6:17 in the evening. No warning, no text, no knock. Just the quiet sound of his car door shutting, followed by the slow footsteps up my front walk. I saw him through the kitchen window while I was drying the dishes. He didn't look like the man who had once stood beside his wife, watching her tear me down in my own home. He looked older, smaller, like someone who had finally run out of excuses to wear. I didn't meet him at the door. I let him ring the bell. Once, twice, then I opened it and stepped aside. No words. Not yet. He walked in like he was stepping into a church, every movement deliberate, every glance cautious. I could feel the apology clinging to him, even before he said it. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The same table where everything had started to rot. The same table where he once looked through me like I was a spreadsheet instead of a mother. He cleared his throat. I read everything. Watched the second interview. Twice. I nodded once, still saying nothing. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. Thick, handwritten, no return address. Just my name across the front. This is everything I filed with Vanessa. The financial stuff. The original agreement. Copies of everything I signed. I want you to have it. I didn't take it right away. I needed to know if he came for redemption or release. You knew what she was doing, even if you didn't know how far it went. You felt it. You saw it. His face tightened. He nodded. I did. I kept telling myself it was harmless, that it was planning, that you'd be safer if someone else handled things. But the truth is, it was easier to let her lead than it was to disappoint her. So you chose her over me. He didn't argue, didn't defend, just sat there, hands clasped, face lowered. I was ashamed, he said, not just of what we did, but how long I stayed silent. You always took care of everything. When Dad died, when the house almost burned, when I lost that first job, you were the anchor, and I let you carry all of it. Then I turned around and treated you like a liability. The envelope sat between us like a loaded weapon. I finally reached for it, set it beside me, didn't open it. Do you regret marrying her? He looked up fast, eyes sharp, but not defensive. No. I regret letting her shape me into something I'm not. I regret standing beside her while she made you feel small. I regret thinking silence was protection when it was betrayal. I leaned back, studying him. And now I want to fix what I broke. Not just with you, with myself. I need to learn how to be a son again. Not someone who inherits, someone who remembers. I stood and walked to the window. The garden was starting to bloom again. The roses I thought would wither last winter had held on, quietly, stubbornly. You left me with nothing but silence. Not just the accounts, not just the signatures. You stripped the bond between us until there was nothing left but obligation. I know. And now you want me to trust you again. Just like that. No. I want you to watch me earn it. Every single time I show up. I turned around, arms crossed. So show up. He blinked. You can come by once a week. You bring groceries. You trim the hedges. You sit here and talk to me like a person. You don't ask for money. You don't mention the past unless I bring it up. And you leave the second I ask you to. He nodded slowly. Understood. And if you slip, if you lie, if I sense even a fraction of the old cowardice in your voice, this ends. For good. Fair. This isn't forgiveness. Not yet. This is a beginning. He stood, quietly, his voice lower now. That's more than I deserve. He reached the front door. Just before he stepped out, he turned. Vanessa is talking about coming back. She wants to apologize. She says she's changed. I didn't blink. She's not welcome here. Not until I say otherwise. And that won't be any time soon. He nodded again and walked out into the night. I stood there for a long time, envelope in hand. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield was mine now, and I was finally learning how to breathe without waiting for the next strike. It started with a knock, not David's hesitant knock, not the mailman's shuffle or the neighbor kid's rapid tap. This one was sharp, aggressive, like the person on the other side had something to prove. I opened the door. Vanessa stood there, dressed in black like she was attending her own funeral. No kids, no car in sight. Just her and that same look she wore the first time she lied to my face. But this time, something in her eyes had cracked. Her posture was stiff, but her voice came out low and breathless. I need to speak with you. Now. I didn't step aside. I didn't blink. This conversation happens on the porch. She gave a quick glance over her shoulder, then nodded. Fine. I crossed my arms, waited. She inhaled, like she was preparing for a monologue, but the words didn't come in order. I lost my job. The board forced me out, said the story caused reputational damage. One of the donors pulled a 6-figure contribution. I'm being investigated for mismanagement of funds because they think I leveraged my position to access your estate. I kept my expression still. Let the tension hang. David cut me off. After your last meeting with him, he pulled the joint accounts. Said he needed time. Said he didn't trust me anymore. That was the first thing he's done right in years. She swallowed hard. You don't have to like me, but you have to believe I didn't think it would go this far. I thought I was doing what was best for the family. I thought I could control it. You weren't protecting a family. You were building a trap. You just thought I was too old to notice the walls closing in. She flinched. No comeback this time. I stepped closer, kept my voice firm. You filed false paperwork. You manipulated my son. You tried to erase my autonomy and spin it as compassion. Then, when it blew up, you tried to paint yourself as the victim. You weaponized sympathy and underestimated the one person you should have feared from the beginning. She looked down at her shoes, lips trembling. I deserve all of that, but I need you to hear one thing. She looked back up, and for the first time, her voice cracked in a way that sounded real. I grew up watching women like you get pushed into corners, silenced, forgotten, and I swore I'd never end up like that. But somewhere along the way, I became worse. I became the person doing the pushing. I raised an eyebrow. So what do you want? Forgiveness. Closure. I want accountability. From myself. I'm not asking to come back. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to stand here and say it to your face. I was wrong. I failed you. And I hurt your son in ways I didn't understand until it was too late. I let the silence stretch. I needed to make sure this wasn't just another performance. But her hands were shaking. Her voice wasn't rehearsed. She looked like a woman who had finally been stripped of her armor. I gave a single nod. Then go fix what you broke. Start with yourself. Start with your children. But don't come back here until you've earned it, with more than words." She blinked fast, nodded, and turned. As she walked away, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt done. Later that night, David showed up. He didn't knock this time. He let himself in through the back, like he used to when he was 17 and late for curfew. He found me in the living room, lights low, a cup of tea untouched on the side table. "I saw her," he said. "I know." He sat across from me, hands clasped between his knees. "She's not coming back. Not to the house. Not to me. I told her we need space. Maybe forever." I didn't say anything. He looked up. I meant what I said. About rebuilding. "Then start with a question you haven't asked yet." He tilted his head, confused. "You've asked for forgiveness. You've asked for another chance. But you haven't asked what I lost. What it cost me." He swallowed. "What did it cost you?" "Everything that made me feel like a mother. The dignity, the peace, the belief that my son would never see me as a burden. You didn't just let her target my money. You let her steal my place in this family." His voice came out quiet. "I'm sorry. You already said that." He looked at the floor. "So what now? You earn back what you broke. One act at a time. You show up, you listen, you work. Not for me, for yourself. And you teach your children what it means to repair, not with speeches, with sweat." He nodded. "Then I'll start tomorrow." I stood, walked past him and placed the teacup in the sink. "Then don't be late. The hedges are a mess." And for the first time in years, he smiled, not a guilty smile, not a forced one, but something honest, something new. David kept showing up. Every Saturday morning, rain or shine, he came at 8, not a minute early, not a minute late. At first, he didn't come inside. He stayed outside in the yard. He trimmed the hedges, power washed the driveway, repainted the back fence without being asked. He didn't speak much during those visits, just nodded when I opened the door and quietly returned to his work. I offered him water. He always accepted it with both hands, looked me in the eye, then got back to it. It was 2 months before I invited him in for lunch. Nothing fancy. Egg salad, cold tea. He didn't talk about Vanessa. I didn't ask. He sat at the same table where he once signed papers behind my back. But now, there was nothing hidden, no subtext. Just 2 people learning how to sit in the same room again. After that, we fell into rhythm. He'd arrive, work, sit for lunch, then leave without lingering. He never brought the kids, never mentioned the past unless I did. Until that one morning in late September. He came inside without a knock. His face was pale, eyes sunken. I knew something was wrong before he even spoke. Vanessa's sister called him. Vanessa had collapsed at work. Stress-induced arrhythmia, the doctor said. Nothing fatal, but a warning shot. She'd been pushing herself too hard, overworking, isolated, refusing help. He didn't cry, but the weight of his guilt hung in the air between us. "I don't want to see her right now," he said, "but I also don't want her to fall apart without someone telling her the truth." I set my tea down. "Then say what you need to say. She won't listen to me. Not anymore. Then she'll have to listen to herself." He nodded, then stood and walked to the door. But before he left, he turned back. "If I brought her here, just once, would you allow it?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Bring her," but she steps inside alone. 2 days later, she came. David stayed in the car. She walked to the front porch, slowly this time, with none of the sharp arrogance she used to carry like perfume. She was thinner, no makeup, a plain navy sweater over jeans. She held nothing in her hands. I opened the door but didn't speak. She stepped in, stopped in the foyer, and took a long breath. I expected the cold shoulder, maybe even the door slammed in my face. I don't deserve to stand here. I closed the door behind her. No, you don't. She nodded. I'm not here to fix what I broke. I can't. I've made peace with that. Then why are you here? To tell the truth out loud, not to clear my name, just to finally carry the weight of it myself. I leaned against the hallway table, arms crossed. Go on. I knew exactly what I was doing when I convinced David to sign those papers. I called it precaution, future planning, but it was greed, wrapped in worry. I told myself that your silence meant consent, but it didn't. It meant restraint. I said nothing. She stepped forward. I thought control was safety. I thought if I managed everything, no one could hurt me. But the truth is, I became what I feared most. A woman so terrified of being powerless that she crushed someone else to feel strong. Still, I stayed quiet. She finally looked up. I'm not asking to be let back in. I know I can't repair what I've done with words, but I need you to know I'm not hiding anymore. I've started therapy. I've stepped down from my board positions. I'm rebuilding my life with nothing left to manipulate. And honestly, that's the first honest thing I've done in years. My chest was tight. Not from anger, from the sheer gravity of everything that had led to this moment. I spoke slowly. You didn't just take money. You took dignity. You stripped a mother of her peace. You dragged your own children into a battle they never asked to witness. She nodded. I did. And now I live with it. I learn from it. I never want my daughter to become the woman I used to be. And that starts with showing her what accountability looks like. I exhaled. You're not forgiven. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. But this is the first thing you've said to me that didn't feel like a chess move. She gave a weak smile. Nothing performative. Just human. Then she turned and walked back out. I watched her from the window. David didn't get out of the car. She got in slowly, head low, hands shaking. I didn't feel victorious, but I felt something shift. She had walked in alone, and she had walked out, changed. The first Sunday of October was quiet, not just outside. Inside me, too. The air had cooled, leaves scattered across the driveway. The scent of rosemary and soil drifted through the kitchen window. I was baking again. Nothing fancy. Just cornbread and stew. Simple food. Warm food. David arrived at noon. He carried a brown paper bag and a set of small pruning shears. He didn't ask where to put things. He just moved. Set the bag down. Washed his hands. Stepped outside and clipped the last of the summer overgrowth along the back fence. I watched from the window. Not as a mother, not as someone expecting something, just as a woman looking at a man learning how to show up. When he came back in, I poured him soup. He ate quietly, as always, between sips of warm tea and glances toward the garden. Vanessa hasn't contacted me since, he said. I nodded. She's doing the work, from what I hear. Therapy, volunteer shifts, distance from chaos. I'm not sure where it will lead, but at least it's not performance anymore. And you? I still wake up sometimes thinking I'll see the damage she left in every corner of my life. But then I look around, and I see what's been rebuilt. Not perfectly, not quickly, but real. He looked down at his bowl, then back up. Do you forgive me? Not fully, I said, but I believe you now, and I see you trying. That counts more than you know. He nodded. It wasn't a victory, it was something deeper. I reached for a folder on the table, placed it in front of him. What's this new will? Updated trust documents, no surprises, no traps, everything clean, transparent. You're listed as a secondary contact, no control, no expectation, just awareness. He didn't open it. You didn't have to give me that. I did. Because boundaries don't exist to punish. They exist to protect. And healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward without dragging the past like a corpse behind us. He exhaled slowly. Something in his shoulders released. Thank you. I stood, took both bowls to the sink. He followed, grabbing the cups. After he left that day, I walked the perimeter of the house, inspected the locks, the garden, the roses. Nothing felt heavy anymore. Not even the silence. That night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in my old shawl. The stars were out, scattered and distant. I thought of the woman I was when all this started. Trusting, silent, then angry, broken. Now I wasn't any of those things. I was something else, someone else, someone who stood through the fire and walked out on her own feet, someone who learned the cost of peace and paid it in full. If you've ever been pushed aside, made to feel invisible, or treated like your worth ended where your usefulness did, then this story was for you. Sometimes the hardest part isn't fighting back. It's choosing to live with dignity when the people closest to you forget who you are. If this story touched something inside you, don't carry it alone. Share it. Tell someone. Speak it out loud. Healing starts when silence ends, and your voice is stronger than you think.